Good evening and hello and welcome. Hope you're all doing well. It's that time again. We're back live in public on YouTube. How dare us? It's been a while. Great to see you all. We've got a lovely masterclass waiting for you this evening, and it's a bit of a big moment for us because, you know, we're celebrating one of our members releasing on an incredible record label in the form of the obviously legendary and iconic Bedrock, but we're also celebrating the fact that it did indeed end up going to a Beatport #1 for the Melodic House and Techno releases part of Beatport, which we couldn't be more thrilled for. And whisper it quietly, I'm dead bitter about it because this guy even outdid my Bedrock release, so not very happy about that. But hey, I'm still going to give him the flowers, as the kids say. So yes, it's an amazing and very, very special evening. So what we're going to do is we're going to get to it in a moment, and we're going to introduce Chris, aka Four Candles, and we're going to go through Devious, which is the lead track off the EP, which came out a few weeks ago, and we're going to do a little bit of a general talk to start with, and then we will break down the track and we'll show you exactly how Chris went about creating this utter piece of dance floor destruction, which I managed to actually experience firsthand, because one of the most lovely things about it, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in due course when me and Chris talk about it, I actually got to see the track in action last October at Fabric when Digweed played for 5 hours, and it was honestly one of the biggest records of the night. And then from there it made its way to the new live in London from Fabric, and then on top of that, obviously we ended up with the release on Bedrock, so we couldn't be happier. And we're going to give props to a lot of people who have helped Chris along the way. Big shout outs obviously to my man Nick Muir as well, who's been a huge part of this. So we're going to be talking about Nick and giving Nick a lot of love this evening as well, so I want to get that out there straightforward and before we get into it. But before we do get into it, if you've joined us new, welcome. This is MYT. MYT stands for Make Your Transition. We're an artist development platform dedicated to helping you become the best artist you can be by becoming the best version of yourself. We're a bit different to other learning platforms. We're an incredible community. We're a family, just as Mr. Roman Gill has just said. Hello, Roman. Basically, it is a family, and we are all pushing each other together. We do artist development, we do regular track feedback sessions, we have guest masterclasses like this one, both publicly on YouTube like this evening, and obviously for our members only. And we do label A&R sessions as well with great labels. We did our first one in January with Probitech Records, which has led to artists being signed. And this is what we do. We help people get signed. We help them get into the right positions in their career. We help you to do it your way and help you to do it in a way that's not stressful but enjoyable. So that's what we're here to do. So if you're joining us for the first time, like I say, welcome. There'll be loads of information in the description in the aftermath if you're watching this afterwards, and if you're watching it live, maybe come back and see the information there. Chat's open. and we're going to bring the best comments up on screen. So if you've got questions for Chris as well, then please feel free to stick them in the chat. And basically, that's what we're here to do. We're here to answer your questions, and we're here to kind of show off a little bit, quite frankly, about how fucking cool we are, to be honest. So it is a really, really interesting time. So yeah, I mean, this has been a wild ride for us over the last 2.5 years of putting this community together. We did it through the pandemic, and we've had incredible success, like I say, with Chris ending up being number one on Beatport, other number ones as well from, people like Gareth Cole, for example. Hello, Gareth, if you're watching. Well done. He had a house number one recently as well. We've had lots of Radio 1 support for artist members like Maschine, for example, and lots of others just getting signed to bigger and better labels, going off and basically creating a career for themselves. So it's an absolutely beautiful thing. So more information about us, you can head over to our website, www.transition.studio. And on top of that, we also are going to be bringing to you a lot more new content on this YouTube channel. So we filmed a load of new content. It's in the edit right now. It's a little bit different than some of the other music production content you've seen out there. I'm really keen to see what you think of it. I'm also it's a bit of a new look for me as well. So I'm kind of almost a bit dying inside as well, if I'm being honest. So it's going to be interesting to see how you guys react to it. So if you don't or aren't subscribed to the NYT YouTube channel, please do hit that subscribe button at the bottom, hit the bell notification so you get more notifications when this stuff is coming online, and basically enjoy what we do. We just passed 7,000 subscribers. We're on that ride. Not to sound like one of those YouTube influencers, but it is a necessary part of the process, and it just gives you a nice little taste about what we do behind our little backstage area on our members only Discord and on our live calls. So without much further ado, here he is, the man himself. I'm going to move it over into the lovely Zoom window, and I'm going to introduce you to the subject of tonight's masterclass and our special guest. Here he is, Mr. Chris Brown himself, aka Four Candles. How are you, my brother?
Evening, Paul. Yeah, really, really good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, mate, all the better for seeing you and hearing your dulcet tones, and realizing that we look far more alike than any of us would like to admit.
Yeah, that's right. I think I need to tone down the rosy cheek filter I've got set up over here.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely, yeah. And you're just missing an armful of tattoos, and then you should be all right.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, thought so, mate. Thought so, yeah. So how's things over in your neck of the woods, and how's life since becoming a top whack Beatport artist?
Yeah, no, it's life's pretty normal, but exciting nonetheless. I've been as you well know, Paul, I've been stuck in the studio pretty much every day for the last probably 3 years. Not through more of a labor of love, I have to admit, than a feeling forced into doing it. I got myself into a routine a little while back, and that hasn't changed. I'm still doing that every day. I'm still in here. And still absolutely loving it. But yeah, one thing that has changed, I've had a lot of interest recently with a couple of labels, made a couple of new deals, which is great. I've got some exciting new music coming out on a couple of labels, and I could probably hint off one of them a little bit later on tonight, actually. But
you'll be able to tell me this in the preparations.
So that's all good. But yeah, I'm keeping well, mate. Thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, good. It's been busy. Like, things have all of a sudden just gone 100 mile an hour again, and seems to be back out on the road doing like various bits of consultancy work. None of which that I can talk about publicly, unfortunately, which makes me sound like just one of them dickheads straight away. Unfortunately, we won't go there. But yeah, plenty going on. Been traveling a lot this week. Out on the road again tomorrow. I'm in Manchester, and then from there, some stuff going on in London, and then I'm off to Ibiza at the end of the month for the first time in pretty much 3 years. So long overdue. Really looking forward to getting back to one of my favourite places in the world, and getting back to IMS, the International Music Summit, which is going off that week. So, lots of things going on with NYT over there, actually. Again, a little bit early doors to be able to kind of mention any of it, but, it's all very exciting. And, NYT is as you well know, as a community and like as a platform, as a business, if you will, it's building, and it's building momentum all the time. So like I'm super super happy with it. And yeah, apart from that, I'm back in the studio myself. I'm working on an album of my own, producing another album for another set of artists. So yeah, times all of a sudden have gone from 0 to 100 mile an hour again. So I couldn't be happier, to be honest, mate.
Good stuff. Yeah, it's good to be busy. I'm just going to free plug one of your mixes actually from recently before we get going. It's going to be one of those reversey kind of
here
jobs.
We go. Go on.
If you haven't checked it out yet, you definitely need to listen to Paul's Ukraine appeal mix that he did for the Global Progression team. That was part of a 24-hour marathon they did. But Paul has put a mix of his up on YouTube very recently, and it was really, really good. It was on the Sunday morning, right towards the end of that. And actually, the team, I don't know if you know, Paul, last check, they've raised about 1,700 quid now. So
amazing.
Really, really good.
Yeah, amazing. It was a fantastic thing, and it also represented a great way for us to have a little bit of an experimentation with one of our partner platforms as well. We're going to give a shout out to one of our partners at MYT who are called Volta. So if we'll put that link in the description for later if any of you want to watch it if you haven't already. That's actually up on the MYT YouTube channel, and that was originally put out on Mixcloud Live, and it was an audio visual set. So this is part of a new concept that I'm doing, and we're partnering with Volta, an incredible platform to do the live audio reactive graphics for live streaming and stuff. And it's an amazing sort of new way to be able to present music, which I'm really, really proud to say that, they're going to be a very close partner of us going forward. We're going to do full training on that as well. And the other lovely aspect of it was to combine the fundraising for an incredibly necessary cause to actually then showcase the MYT members, because the vast majority of that music on the mix was either music that I predominantly had a hand in producing, music I'd produced myself or done remixes myself, or they were from MYT members that actually the vast majority of them are unsigned. In fact, there was only one track from Vril from about 2016, I think it was. That was the only record that didn't have a sort of a direct affiliation to MYT. So the feedback on it has been absolutely off the chain. So I really appreciate you mentioning that, Chris, because I was going to do my usual modest kind of thing and then just not mention it. So I really appreciate you doing that as well, mate. So yeah, we'll put a link in the description or in the note or in the chat or whatever. And then, yeah, you can check it out from there, mate. So thank you very much for giving me the old reverse plug, which sounds extremely dodgy and really inappropriate.
Yeah, we've got into the innuendos. We've not even started getting into the track yet, and we're pulling them out.
Well, exactly.
That's where we're pulling them out from.
Well, exactly, yeah. Well, I assumed from the track being called Devious that you are some form of deviant, so I thought I'd introduce the double entendres early doors and get them out the way.
Soon,
yeah, exactly. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go through a few comments before we go into the genesis of the track and like what, just give it kind of a brief overview of the story and how it's all kind of come to pass, and then we'll get into Ableton and we'll actually see the session and we'll go through it bit by bit. So Vicky says, hello everyone, excited to see how this magic called Devious was made. Good evening to Sean Harvey. Good evening to Nick Bowman. Great to see João Pereira in here as well. Nishank, I'm going to give him a shout out as well. Abraham Clark, good to see you, mate. Let's go indeed. Pantai Steve. Roberto Traista, great to see you, mate. Carl H. Here we go. D2BT, yes indeed, my mate. Yes, indeed, yes. Vicky saying how amazing. D2BT saying thank you very much, Chris. So you're getting love already.
Thank you.
Yeah, D2TB, which is easy for me to say, especially on green tea only, says MYT is the best platform out there, 200%. So I very much appreciate that. And also Ray saying it's not just a family, it's a way of life, which makes it sound a little bit like a religious cult. So I'm a little bit worried about that. But there you go. Hello to Don. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. D2TB says me and you almost twins. Naveen Lariba saying this is exciting. I believe your better half has got control of your comments here, because it's just come up on YouTube saying 4 Candles Chris saying he's not allowed tattoos, Paul. By the way, this is Jill on his sign-in somewhere else in the house.
Damn it, I need to take that controller off her.
Oh mate, no, it's not that kind of masterclass. Let me just tell you that straight away. Absolutely straight away. Hello to Nick, Ferrano Music. Gerent Reese, good evening, and a happy belated birthday to Gerent as well. Yeah, Gerent saying a lot of power to these tracks. Production is amazing, so I'm definitely intrigued to look into the process. John Bradshaw says, I'm playing this track at a festival in Chester in October. It's my secret weapon. I love it. Well, it's not so secret now. We're doing a public YouTube masterclass about it. but we love it. We love the intention anyway. Chuck, good to see you, mate. Kevin, Mr. Bongworth, which is probably the best username on YouTube ever. And hello, Yudi. Good to see you, mate. Good to see you. Right, okay. Oh, and there's Magnus sneaking in at the end there. Hello to Magnus. Right, okay. So, Chris, do talk to me about where the hell did this piece of weaponry come from? And, like, you know, what the genesis of the track was. And then, like, let's get into the journey.
Yeah, sure. So, journey-wise from start, and this is how I start pretty much every track. And I've talked to you about this before, and I've mentioned it in a couple of sessions we had on MYT. About 2 years ago, I stopped trying to create a specific sound from the off to go, you know, for example, right, tonight, Paul, I'm going to write a banger, and that's it. I didn't think that at all. I just thought, right, okay, get in the studio, sit down with a few ideas and just see how they pan out. So actually the drum loop started out in its infancy along a really nice kind of friendly, melodic, almost deep progressive sound, if you like. It was really kind of floaty, had this, actually the vocal, which is still in it now, which is this I'm reaching in, which gets darkened right out and then twisted, as you well know. That was actually quite a nice juxtaposed sound against this really like soft melody. And it was not like, you know, it was nice, but that's the operative word. It was a nice track. It was just starting to warm up. I had this nice 16 bar loop going on. I was like, cool, I'll come back to this. We moved house. This was probably about a year ago, just about a year ago. We moved house. I'd forgotten about that particular sound, and whatever position I was in, whatever mood I was in at that time, that was kind of lost by the time we moved. We just got here, and I was in the living room with the setup, thankfully allowed to set it up in the living room before we built this place. And at that time I was like, right, I'm gonna have some proper bloody noodling around with this, and I'm really gonna, you know, go to town with Virus, because I'd had this for a little while, and we'll come on to that later, but had that for a little while. And I was like, right, I need to really dig into what I can kind of get out of this. So I started playing around with the sounds a bit. Came up with this nasty FM saw synth sound on this session where I just had the drum pattern, and I'd completely forgotten about the soft melodies and everything else that was going on there, because everything else was on mute at the time. So I had this drum pattern, machine on, playing away, started noodling around with it, got this sound, and I was like, oh, bloody hell, that's a bit naughty. It's a bit devious. And I'm like, right, okay, I think I need to keep this. And then I unmuted everything else. I thought, I'll have a listen to what else was in there. And I was like, no, that's going in the bin right now. I was like, not having that. I'm going to carry on with this. So that's long-ish story short. That was the inception. So it wasn't. I know some people are thinking you must have got in the studio, gone, right, I'm going to create something really like hard hitting and go for it. And I'd love to be able to do that and actually come out with the goods about the other side, but I think what happens with me, and I'm sure we've talked about this before, sometimes you end up losing a little bit of that authenticity of, you know, the moment in time where you were creating, and you just let things come to you and you just enjoy it. And that was exactly what happened there. I was just enjoying playing around, and it came up. I was like, right, okay, there's an idea, let's develop it. And I do that a lot even now. I've still got, you know, on the go easy 20 to 30 projects that are probably okay. That might need a little bit of developing, but until I hit that point, there's a bit that clicks in my brain where I'm like, right, okay, I am going to develop this and I'm going to push it right through. And I had that moment with that source synth and that lead sound, and I was like, right, okay, yeah, this needs it.
Amazing. So yeah, it's just interesting, just like hear it from that perspective of, like, you know, it was completely not so much a happy accident, but it wasn't like a by design kind of completely like, this is what I'm gonna do, this kind of thing, you know. I think it's really interesting for people to kind of hear that, and I think it gives a lot of the producers who are watching this right now, you know, a lot of relief, really, I'd say, more than anything, with, you know, to actually say that, you know, not everything has to be planned to within an inch of its life, and in fact it's the space that you leave And it's when you let go of, and we actually sent an email out about this on Monday, because I send emails out to our mailing list, which is now, God, it's about nearly 7,000 strong on the emails now. You know, people getting tips every Monday just for a little bit of mindset every week. And this week's was all about letting go of what other people might think of what your music is or what it should be, and letting go of, you know, trying to get on certain labels and trying to impress people, or, you know, trying to get the ear of like people who you respect and stuff like that, and actually just doing you. It's just back to what Chris was saying at the beginning about, as he said, he stopped trying to make a particular sound and just decided to do what was right for him. And that, I think, is an amazing thing. And I think actually I would go as far as to say I don't think Devious gets to the extent or gets as a success as a track as it is without that, actually. You know what I mean? So I don't know whether you found that yourself, Chris, that, you know, once you kind of let go of that, it actually made more sense.
Yeah, it's incredibly liberating, because you're no longer thinking, right, okay, I'm going to produce this, and this is exactly how it's going to sound. And whilst I'll agree, you know, to a certain extent, it's good to have the limitation in there. If you can put limitation into your creativity through other means and not necessarily through what the product has to sound like and be functional for at the end, and just do it more as an enjoyment, I truly believe that's the best way to produce. It's, like I say, it's liberating for so many reasons, but one of them is you're not putting pressure on yourself. You're in that zone, and creativity should be a joy, and you're in that zone, and you're in that creative zone, enjoying it. Leave the stress to the mix down. leave the stress, to that point where you're like really just trying to hone in on your kick drum. You know what I mean? Later on,
and that's where people like us come in to help you with the mix down. Do you know what I mean? So
exactly. Yeah, leave that stress to us.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously you got the track to a certain extent, and then the rest of the story comes to actually like the kind of the support that you had from, you know, select people and, you know, select platforms, shall we say. So at what stage did you reach out and actually get feedback, and like what does that feel like and look like for you in terms of like what you're looking for?
Yeah, so this was twofold, and it's a good way to actually probably segue into MYT at the same time as talking about the fantastic help and support I've had from Nick, who's been, you know, he's a legend. An absolute salt of the earth bloke.
Amazing.
Always got time for you, and he's been really helpful with me over the last couple of years. So I'll just run into that very briefly, and then we'll talk about MYT as well, because I think it'll do quite well. So there's just a little backstory on Nick. Sorry, so because you don't necessarily know how we met, people just going, hang on a minute, how do you know Nick? And it came to fruition through a really simple email that I popped over to him. He had a producer call out, if you like. It was just during the start of the pandemic, which just said, producers, drop me your tracks, basically. Let me have a listen. If you've got something you think you want to take over the line, get in touch and I'll have a listen, and then we'll go from there. So I did that. I sent over a track, which has never been released, which I still play every now and again, but I'm going to keep hold of it. And he listened to it, and he was like, really like this, Chris. He got back to me within about a week or so. Really like this. If you fancy working together and going over doing something over Zoom, then just give us a shout. And I thought, well, there's an opportunity I can't really turn down, because, you know, it's, for me, it's somebody that I've been heavily influenced by musically over the years, from all the way back to, you know, when he was remixing on King Unique's 2 Million Suns, that kind of sound way back when, that kind of dark progressive sound. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, you know, I'd love to pick your brain. So I instantly replied, casual and calm. I was like, yeah, yes, please, I'll do a bit of that. So yeah, we had a session, worked on a track that ended up going on to Omnia, actually, called Stay Tuned, which got quite a good reception. But I learned so much from him in those first couple of sessions, mostly about, you know, track placement, when you come into, as in the channel, what you're doing in your channels, having presence in individual sounds and making sure, and I quote, if you're going to put it in there, make sure you fucking mean it. But, you know, an approach to what you're doing with the sounds. and that really got me thinking about, it's nice to be nice, but it's better to really push that sound and get it out there. And that's probably what changed my kind of the way I design my sounds and how I really approached my productions, from a softly getting everything to fit well to right, okay, try juxtaposing things, try being a little bit, with a little bit more disharmony here and there, try and put a bit of dissonance on this and don't care too much about it. It's that balance between putting it in there with intent, but not so much that it becomes cheesy. Do you know what I mean? It's that real, so I started experimenting a lot more, and I started feeling that I had a little bit more freedom to play a bit more. And that kind of came hand in hand with right, I'm going to produce whatever the hell I want. So that was kind of feeding into that belief at the same time. So that was great. So the Devious thing though, fast forward about a year later, and I think this was about this time last year, to be honest with you. I was due a session with Nick on a track, which I will actually drop the label now, which is going to be going out on Forensic Records in a couple of months.
Very nice.
So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that and your ears pinned back, and you'll hear that one soon. And that was the one we were looking at working on together. So put a few finishing touches on it, but by chance, I'd sent over some stems. Nick was having a nightmare getting the stems off, I think it was WeTransfer or whatever we'd used at the time. And we're just chinwagging away on Zoom like we are now. And I said, I'll tell you what, while you're waiting, because he'd re-downloaded them and he was just sat there waiting, looking at the download bar. I was like, while you're waiting there, I said, I've got a track here that I've put together recently. It was a bit of a Frankensteiner after starting off a drum loop, and I ended up with this kind of dark sound, and I think it might be up your street, but I'll send it over to you anyway. Have a listen to this. Banged him a SoundCloud link. So we're sat there waiting for this thing to download. Nick's got his headphones on like this, and he's just, and I'm sat here in silence at the other end of the Zoom call, watching him, like very much like you are now, sat there, but he's going like this. I'm just there in silence, going, right, I hope he likes this, and I hope he's digging it like I am. I think I'm onto something nice. And then I see this like wry smile come on and this bit of a grin as the build-up comes. And this was the first time I had the first great feedback, and it actually will lead into the MYT thing now. So he finishes the track, he takes his headphones off, and he went, "Why did you just let it land like that when it dropped?" It's like, why did you just let it land?
Sounds familiar.
And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, I know what you mean. He goes, yeah. He said it built up, it just kept coming, and then it just kind of, it was just a little bit too, apologetic almost in the way it landed. It just kind of calm, softly. I was like, I think you could really wring the neck out of that. You could really, really wring the neck out of that just before the drop and do something crazy with it. And I was like, okay, I'll take that away. And then we got into the session, and then I'd had that little bit of, right, I'll park that feedback and I'll work on that. And I knew full well that later in the week I was going to be chatting with yourself and with the MYT guys as well. I thought, right, I'll pop Devious up and see what people think there. And sure enough, one of the first things you said on the feedback was, "It just landed, mate." Pretty much the same words. You're like, it just kind of, we were going for takeoff, and then it just kind of, it's almost like it just came back down. I was like, oh, okay. And obviously mentioned the same to you then. So from there to here, that's where I was like, right, okay, I really need to twist this up. So I cut the drop, as in the breakdown, the build up, got to the top of that build up, which you'll know if you've heard the track, which you probably know if you're on this chat anyway, and then gave it a bit of space to breathe. I thought, right, I'm going to put something really naughty on the back of this, and added some extra synth work, and away we go.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah. Absolutely. So, it was a heady combination of Nick Muir and one of our community track feedback sessions that helped really take it to the next level. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and you found the track feedback sessions useful on a number of occasions for a number of tracks, right? Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's always great to get a second opinion, right? That's something that we love to get. The amount of times that I've had messages and sent messages over the years to people, and you said, if you've got 5 minutes to give this a bit of feedback, and people have gone, yeah, no worries. And as nice as it is to get your mates to listen to your music, they're probably like 99% of the time going to tell you it's a banger anyway, because they're your mates. So it's really good to get into a position amongst a load of other producers who are really good and really, really know their stuff.
and obviously with your knowledge over many years, Paul, as well, to just be able to sit there and listen to it properly, objectively, and give constructive feedback, and that's the key. It's knowing how to give that. For us, it's understanding how to take it and then to take it away and utilize that feedback. And no, it's been absolutely fantastic. Yeah. I've used every bit of feedback that I've had from every track. Has resulted in better music for me.
No, fantastic, mate, fantastic. Glad to hear it. And the funny thing is, you said about a second opinion, and my immediate thought, as you said, that was by the time you get to the end of one of our track feedback sessions, you're probably on your 25th opinion, because there's that many of us in there, yeah, all looking for feedback. And that's the great thing about those sessions. It's like, it's where the community comes together. We've been able to get to know each other so well through that, and be able to give each other like so much encouragement, so much constructive feedback, so much like detail. And normally if you're struggling with something in a track, there's normally a multitude of different people who are already like, hey, I struggled with that too, here's how I here's how I worked with it, here's the tactics that I used. And obviously the level of detail that we go into with like the various plugins that we use. Big shout outs to Plugin Alliance and Adapter Audio Metric AB, the ultimate reference and plugin that we use on sessions. Well worth having in any stage of production, but particularly in mixdown. And it's the centerpiece of our feedback sessions, and it allows us to go into so much more depth. And obviously, what we didn't already mention as well is the fact that these sessions, we have regular guests who come in. We've had people like Nick first. Did something with NYT where he did a track feedback session with us. I believe that's still on the YouTube channel if you look further down. And then on top of that, we've had people like Atish recently, who was phenomenal. Big shouts to Atish. His feedback was just absolutely so on point. It actually put me on my toes for a little bit as well, if I'm being honest, because I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy's good, man. He's giving people bloody timestamps and all sorts, like at 35 seconds, this is too loud. It was absolutely brilliant. And I did as a return, I did his Patreon recently, which was amazing. And then obviously, we had people like Patrice as well, one of our closest friends for this parish, Mr. Patrice Baumel, who did a track feedback session not so long ago, and it's still up on the platform, and it's still a bit of a hit. So that's the kind of the level and the quality of feedback you get from, not just the community, but, some of the best names in the industry. So it's really beautiful for me on a personal level just to see how this is all kind of worked out for you, because this is exactly why we do what we do at NYT. Like, it really is. It's like, this is what we live for. Get people up the ladder, and that's literally, what we exist for. And if we weren't doing this, mate, we probably, we may as well just shut the doors and go and do something else, So there you go. So excellent stuff. So yeah, man. So, now we've had that, and then obviously, we got the track feedback in, and then obviously it comes to a little bit later in the year, it comes to October. And
I
say it's an evening in October where certain things happen. So maybe we should talk about that a little bit before we dive in.
Yeah, so I'll just cut to just before there. So I mean, I did the additions, the changes, if you like, listened to the feedback, implemented it, went back to and for a couple of times, but it was actually it was fairly straightforward in applying the changes that were needed. Once I'd done that, I decided, right, okay, I think I'm there. I'm going to send it back over to Nick and just say, you remember that track we talked about a couple of months back? This is where it's at now. So I sent it back over to him, and I actually talked to him, and I was like, do you think it might be worth maybe having a little look at this at some point? And he just said no. He said, no, I'm not going to mess with this at all. Leave it well alone. I'm going to pop this over to John just to see what he thinks. And it might be up his street. And it was that was what got it over to John. And yeah, John heard it, I think, a couple of weeks later after that. It was around about September time. And I had I think I must have just popped onto Facebook, and I was just looking through what John had been up to, and he was playing in San Francisco. And I just heard the track being played, like the back end of another track being played with my track being mixed in. I was like, that's Devious, that is coming in there. And it was on a video. So the video was like, I don't know, let's say 30-second clip, what it's like for socials. And it was the last few seconds, and I was like, that's definitely Devious coming in. That means he's playing it. That means he must think it's all right, which is a great start. So that was really good. And then a couple of days later, Nick dropped me a message and said, "Have you seen John's Instagram?" And there was a video of him dropping it somewhere else. And I was like, "Bloody hell!" I was like, "This is fantastic!" Like, and having that feeling of seeing people, the track going off and everybody just going mad to it. I was like, it's just an incredible buzz. So yeah, that was that led us up to the Fabric Night, which we'd always planned on doing anyway, and popping into London and having a catch up for Bedrock, which is great. Because they're few and far between, and it's always nice to get out in the UK to see John play, because as we all know, if you're into your prog house, that his longer sets are almost seminal, aren't they? So we're like, right, okay, yeah, let's go out there and enjoy that. So we did that, got out to Fabric, had a brief chat about it, and I remember saying to you when we were just stood at the bar, I was like, oh, I wonder if he might, he's played it recently, I wonder if he may well drop it tonight. And it just so happened I managed to catch him as he was walking in, and this is where I'd probably say the other important factor of our industry comes into play, really. It's and that's about speaking to people face to face and getting to know them. And I just caught an opportunity to just catch him before he went on, so he wasn't in the middle of a mix or something daft like that. We had a brief couple of minutes chat, and I just said, "Look, thanks very much for playing Devious recently." And he's like, "Oh, that's your track." And then we had a little bit of a chinwag about that. And then we talked very briefly about the opportunities maybe that might present itself for Bedrock. By which time I'm playing myself super cool and going, right, okay, yeah, cool, no worries. Thinking, yeah, let's get in. Hopefully this will happen. So John carried on playing that night, and then 4 a.m. that track dropped, and of course we didn't take a video of it because we wouldn't do that in Fabric, and we have stickers on our phones. So sorry, Fabric Nightclub, for that.
Not even remotely.
I agree with the concept. That was a moment in time where I was like, no, sorry, peel off that camera. And that was it was incredible to be there, and part of a really good night as a whole as well. Just great to meet up with people from various live streams, including Nick's live stream, and yourself and other people from NYT, and it was just a really good feeling, as in the whole vibe of the evening was just fantastic. And to have that track played as well was it's icing on the cake. Oh, yeah. And then to find out that it was going to be live in London, mix coming out shortly after that was just something else. So,
Sean Harvey's just in the comments saying it's Bedrock next Thursday. Same again.
I'm looking forward to catching up with you, Sean.
Yeah. Where is it next Thursday, out of interest?
E1, that is.
Oh, is it E1? I'm actually in London next Thursday. I'm meant to be going to see Moody Man at Fabric.
I think you might need to pop over and
I might just need to double fist it, to be honest, mate. Do it that way, because I'm in London all the Easter weekend, so it is what it is.
It would be, of course, good to see you if that's the case.
Always, brother, always. So so then from live in London, it gets to a full Bedrock release.
Yeah, it was. That was a couple of weeks after that. John just got in touch directly, and just said, really, really like it still, and would love to sign it to Bedrock. If it's not already been signed, then obviously I've been sat on it like this. I'm not going anywhere with this. It's tucked away.
I think that was the subtext, if I'm being honest, mate. I think that was normally what happens, because what happened with my release when Luke Brancaccio, big shout out to Luke, he sent it over to John. John heard it very, very quickly, and then within half an hour I got an email with it was from John, and it was basically in capital letters saying, "On pain of death, do not give this out to anyone."
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it was quite funny,
So that's how it happened. And Scott from Bedrock as well just said, if you've got anything else that you'd like to maybe couple up with this for an EP that might complement it. And I was like, I think I have just a trick, actually, because I got had 808, which was nearly finished at the time, but also had a nod back to that kind of classic era Bedrock sound. And I thought, I'm not going to pick and choose something to try and fit what I think you like, but I think you might like this. So I sent that over. Scott and John had to listen to it, and they loved that straight away and took it. So that went on the B side, as it were.
Amazing stuff. And then obviously from there, we land with an eventual Beatport #1 in Melodic House and Techno releases, which is one of the top achievements that one of our members has come back with, mate. So amazing stuff.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a bit of a shock. I just popped in there. I was like, oh, hang on a minute. It's charting. I said to Jill, I was like, all right, This one's doing okay. And then I've got song stats. I'm not sure if you've used that or
Yeah,
had a look at it.
yeah.
And I just popped in there and it went today, flashed up, and it went 1. I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. If you tuned into this, thank you very much for grabbing a copy. It really means a lot. If you bought a copy of the release, particularly in the release chart as well, because it managed to chart for both tracks as individual tracks, and it's still just hanging on in there as well at the minute, which you'll know in this day and age is it's a feat within itself to stay in the charts for long because of the process of which music moves around.
No, absolutely.
But it's still hanging on in there just now, which is great. So it's it's hopefully got a bit of longevity.
I think it has, mate. I think that's one of the things that really stand out about a lot of the Bedrock releases that have come out in the last few years. I mean, obviously, I'm including my own in this one. You know what I mean? May as well blow my own trumpet while I'm there.
Modesty.
Modesty. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Self-praise is no recommendation, my friend. But no, it's really the reason why I say that is because literally I checked I don't go on Facebook very much anymore, but I literally got a message this morning about form constants, and that came out 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's people still going, oh my god, that track's unbelievable. And again, a lot of the tracks that were released that year, they got a lot of play. So, to get signed to a label like Bedrock, I'm gonna be honest, mate, the tracks have got to have a timeless quality. And that's something that's really, really great to have, because these days the cycles on these releases are so short, man. I mean, it's they come out and they're there and they're gone within a week or two.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. I think with the if I go into my my proverbial record box and start digging through the tracks that I've got in there, there are tracks in there from multiple Bedrock artists who of which their tracks I still play. Because they're just it's just good music, and I think we all know John's got a great ear for that, and that's it's a privilege to be on the label, to be honest with you, and to have a track respected in that manner. And he's been playing it for quite a while since as well, which is in this day and age, it's we sometimes live in a bit of a fast music world, don't we? Where we right, quick stuff, the next big tune in, and it's nice that it's lasted a little bit of time there.
No, absolutely, 100%. So, without much further ado, shall we get into the meat and potatoes of the evening? And
I think we better, otherwise people are going to go, God, they're just gassing on.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Yeah, so let's share the screen and let's get going, shall we?
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm just going to put me Craig David cans on,
and I'm just going to shut a door, and then we'll go there. All right. Right, and my camera has decided to disable itself. There you go, I'm back. Happy days.
Let me just get this screen shared.
All good, my mate.
Okay, you have my desktop, Paul, there. Can you see everything okay?
We are in, and I'm just going to make you and I a little bit smaller so we can see the entirety of everything on screen. So yeah, always looks so simple when you see it all laid out perfectly like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I kind of did that on purpose. I thought, right, I don't want to freak everybody out, so I'll because I've done it before where I've looked at other people's masterclasses, and there's some great, fantastic ones out there, obviously, that have been done over time on NYT and other platforms as well. And some of the artists,
other platforms are available.
Yeah, other platforms are available. It scares the shit out of me though when I see literally stacks and stacks and stacks of channels, and I'm like, oh my god, is this what it's got to be?
Yeah.
So I didn't want to freak anybody out, but yeah, here we go. Here she is in her entirety.
All good. So we have a little listen through in its entirety. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I
shall press. Just bring it down and comment in certain areas. Let's just give it the run through, a summary first.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just hit play now, mate.
Cool.
trying to find a way of casually channeling that down then. I was like, no, just stop it.
Hey, master fader. Just get the master fader and give it a little dropsy.
Yeah, I think I've got it on post because I've got this send out to all you guys so you can hear it. So I think it would have just stayed playing. Yeah.
Yeah, would have been all right. But yeah, mate, you've had a few decent comments in the comments here, mate. A few different bits of feedback. Itzel Maldonado says, "Boosh." Nick Bowman can imagine this going mental on a dance floor. Well done, Four Candles. Congrats.
Thank you.
João Pereira says, "Insane. It's like starting a rocket which is about to depart for Saturn." Abraham Clark says, "Wild track, first time hearing it. Absolutely brilliant."
Oh, great. That must be exciting. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that moment, you know, when whether it's your track or somebody else's track, where you just see somebody else going off to it and you're like, I told you this was great. You know, like, I told you this is a tune. Yeah. So no, that's cool. I always like that. You know, there's so many tracks over the years that have done that to me. Or I've been trying to like sell to somebody. I'm going, you've got to listen to this.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm trying to, but you're talking to me. So shut up.
Shut up and let me enjoy the drop. Knobhead. Yeah. One of them. Yeah. One of my favorite comments is Vicky, which just says, rich. Like it's Anchorman, like rich and compelling. Smells of rich mahogany. And Naveen says absolute beast. Sean Harvey, immense. Pure power, says Geraint Reese, drums kick. Yeah, so you've had a lot of love there, mate. And finally, Don says the most innovative drop of 2022 award goes to Four Candles.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you didn't even have to slap the presenter of the award in order to be able to get it. So there's an improvement on the Oscars.
Yeah, true.
Had to fit that in, didn't we? Had to keep it topical.
Hey, it's current, yeah.
Hey, exactly. So yeah, excellent stuff, mate. Excellent. So in terms of we'll go through it like department by department, shall we?
Sure, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Let's start with the kick. So with the kick, what's the what's the vibe with the kick?
Yeah, so I'll run through the general setup I've got in the chain and what's going on with the kick itself. Now, so I use the thing in Ableton, but other software DAWs are available. From a chap called it's Mr. Wiltshire from F9 Audio, James Wiltshire.
Mm-hmm.
One half of the Freemasons.
I do, yes.
There's some incredible kits. Whether it's you're looking for just a little something here or there, whether you're looking for a full blown template to start making house music, for example, if you're starting out, it's good for that as well. But also that F9, I mean, I'm plugging it like I've got an affiliate deal with it. I haven't at all. They've also got, it's just a really good resource for understanding how music works.
No, totally. Yeah.
And I've been on there, countless times over the last few years. But yeah, the kick. So he's got a toolkit that's called F9 Toolkit Club Kicks, which is as it says it is, and it's simply what he originally started out with, and what I've done with it is slightly different. But he built this kit, and it's got a set of kick drums which are samples, and those samples you can manipulate within this setup here. So you can see across the bottom of the screen here, I've got pitch, drive, filter cutoff, resonance, all that good stuff. But probably arguably more important, at least for me, in the sample controls, you've got your attack, decay, sustain, release. Sure. So you're all your ADSR in there. Now that's fantastic, because how many times have you in the past cycled through some kicks, maybe from a sample pack? Yeah. Or you've gone into the kicks on, your drum kit, whatever you're using, and you just haven't got that ability to manipulate that sound in such a way. Now there are other ways to do this, which I can briefly go into another way that I do it as well in a moment. But what I love about this is it's right there in front of you. So I've taken what James originally did with it, and I've had a few kicks that I've developed over time within Maschine, which we'll come on to a little bit later on. And those kick drums I've dropped into here as a regular go-tos. I think I've got something like 18 kicks in there. I probably only go to about 3 or 4 of them, Paul, now, to be honest. They're ones that are, that I love using. They've got a nice sound. They're a little bit punchy. Sometimes I need to add a little bit of weight to the low end. But yeah, generally speaking, they're a really good start for 10. I'm sure I won't be the only one nodding my head to this when I say that sometimes the kick drum can be the absolute pain of the tune. But when you start getting it right, and which is your go-to kick, it can make everything just sit a little bit easier. Oh yeah, totally. So yeah, that's the starting point. I've got it's set up in a MIDI. So if I go into here on the kick, and then scroll up to where. Just zoom out.
So does the actual MIDI note itself, does that equate to the actual pitch, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. So you can, and this is the clever thing about it, you can just go up. Sorry, no, it doesn't actually in this. So this is the thing, right? So what happens with this is, what I like about this is because it's multi-sampled, all of those samples which are loaded into different slots. So all the other kicks that I've replaced and the original ones that James put in there, they're on different MIDI notes. So if you hit a different MIDI note, you've got a different kick sample. So what you could do, for example, and I'll show you this, which is a real quickie. I'll go into kicks here. Let me just bring everything back up. Let's just solo the kick on its own on a loop. And I'll give you an example of just how easy it is to mess with it now. So that kick's just playing away. You've got that there, haven't you? So we'll come on to Donald Thump, which I know you know well.
Having been the inventor of Donald Trump,
exactly. Where did you steal that from? Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so this is the sound we've got right now. I'll go into the MIDI on here. Literally, I could just select all and then go up a note. The kick changes there.
So it's a slightly different sample each time, right?
Just a different sample. But to answer your previous question, and to go back to your pitch, so you've got a pitch control in here.
Yep.
So where my pointer is now, you can just pitch the.
Nice.
Just change it from there. So yeah, lots of control in there. And like I say, the bits that I like, it's the sustain and release, the decay. You've been able to change those. Really gives you control over that kick drum.
Really
so that's the beauty of that. When it comes to processing, and feel free to stop me if we start nerding out. Maybe we'll just get wrapped up in our own nerdsville.
What we're here for, isn't it?
I use the expertly created Donald Thump.
This is for those who don't know. Sorry to cut across you, Chris. For those who don't know,
sure.
This is one of our free downloads. So this is like a kind of a parallel kind of drum processor, and just for a bit of a laugh, we called it Donald Thump because we like to call these things slightly less serious names. We've also got a side chain sort of automatic volume envelope thing that we call Mother Ducker, which is also very popular, as well as reverbs and stuff. So if you go to our website and go to the free stuff section, there's loads of stuff for you to download.
Great. So yeah, I use this on every single track, Paul, now, and this is the setup. So I've got and another one is up until a few years ago, I must admit I didn't really do this. I always recommend having an absolute template of kick drum, contextual drums. And a couple of go-to synths that you maybe use all the time, depending on what you're kind of producing. And for me, Loop Cloud, which is almost always at the end, or Splice, or whatever else you want, when you're looking for a bit of, oh shit, I need some inspiration. So yeah, that's what I do. So yeah, that's the kick. There are some other minor things in there. Utility gain in here and Pro Q3 on the track is just for points in time where I needed to change due to a change in pitch here, so I've upped the volume, and that's the point where you get that just before it kicks back in before the final bit. Nice. So in context, it's just this bit, which I'll just put back on. It's just that element there. And again, you don't need to reinventing the wheel here. You're literally just going, right, okay, I'm going to roll these kicks up and back down and see what I get. And I got some nice effects there because bearing in mind the different samples, and some of them needed a bit more volume than others. So just put that up a little bit before the drop.
Very nice.
And then the last bit, which is a regular fork trick from Four Candles, is this is the initial build up here. So when you're getting that first build up and the frequency modulated pitch kind of leady melody sound, just there, that's just the kick taken off with the low end cut out, and then gently brought back in later on.
Well, I'll tell you what, it actually is, it's out, or the low end is out for a lot longer than you realise. That's a really interesting thing about the arrangement of this, is you actually don't realise just how you've prolonged it and kind of turned it into a break that way without kind of turning it into a break. It's very clever.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. But I think the key to remember is sometimes you can maintain some energy from there. So if you can maintain some energy from the kick, at least it's that sense of energy. If we go to that point where we've just got, we'll just run the kick on its own again, and just look at what's going on in here. So
you got that, and then this second.
It doesn't sound like a great deal. Chopped it at what are we out there?
I don't know, like what, 428?
Just rolling at 400, yeah. But so just the low end energy out of the bass is gone. The bass part of the kick is gone. But you've still got that click, and that click is enough to carry that track for quite some time while you're thinking about the chaos, which is the lead. I think if you can. One thing that I've tried to do, and hopefully managed to do in this, is if I can keep the attention in what feels like the groove, and draw away some of the bass elements and the kick elements. When they come back, they've just got that much more impact. It's almost as if you've sneakily taken it away, as opposed to, you know, obviously taking it away, which is probably ironic considering when you look at here, it goes from this the full-on kick to there. But when you listen to it here, yeah, you don't. I don't think. Well, we probably prove myself wrong here, but I don't think in the main track you really hear that change as much.
Yeah, it's like a little gear shift, isn't it? And you don't really notice it, and then because everything else is still evolving around it, it's like you kind of just accept it. And one of the other things that I think it's important to know what you've not done here as well.
Yeah.
You've not done a big obvious like ta-da, here's like a reverse cymbal or like a riser or like a fill of any description in order to announce the fact that the what's coming next is something like this. It's just kind of happened, so it just almost like slides in there unconsciously and you don't even notice it until it's like it's almost too late and the rocket's already left the launch pad, shall we say.
Do you know what I think it's something that over the years it's bled into my productions. It's listening to the likes of like Darius Sarosian and a few other artists of a similar nature that like to do those chuggy tracks that just chug along, whether they're moody, dark ones or whether they're, melodic floaters. You don't necessarily have to have the obviousness of the transition. And if you can do it without the almost, dare I say it, almost cheesy transition into the next part in a slightly different way, it's a bit more subtle, then yeah, go for it. It's more, it feels more natural, doesn't it?
No, 100%, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So that's the kick with a further plug for MYT. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah. By the way, listeners, this wasn't intended at all. This is
no, not. This was so authentic.
No, genuinely. I mean, I must admit, up until MYT, I wasn't using this. I was using something similar kind of multi-band compression, but I really wasn't using it in that much anger, to be honest. I won't go into the detail of this too much, but I mean, you could do a quick search on multi-band compression on Kick, and you'll find some there's quite a lot of results out there.
Oh yes, very much so, very much so.
So gives you a lot of control.
It really does. Yeah, really does. So in terms of the drums, and you mentioned before that you're a big user of Maschine.
Yes.
So I would like to get into that and what the workflow is like for you and why you tend to go for Maschine over, say, something like a drum rack, for example, in Ableton.
Yeah, I'll explain that. And I've also, what I've got here, which I'm just going to drag up next to my drums, is a Maschine, an example to demonstrate what I'm on about, because people might be sat there going, in 5 minutes going, I've lost him. He's gone. He's gone off on one of his rants about how he uses Maschine, and I have no idea what he's on about.
Yeah,
so
he's like a deaf Jack Russell. You can't get him back.
Yeah. So my drums, as sampled on their own with no kick, are here we go. Nice. So in reality, they're fairly simple. I've got a couple of hi-hat bits in there, some claps, a few clips and swiffy bits, if you like. Is that even a word?
It's a technical term, that, isn't it? Swiffy bits.
Yeah, and a few silky elements as well. So, and then some tops in there, which you'll see down the bottom of here. Another little secret I'll let you in on. There's two things I use. This was about this track, the inception is about a year ago, so it's before I really started using the one I'm about to talk about. But I will go into Loop Cloud quite freely and openly and have a look for tops. I'll search tops in drums, cycle through a few. Usually if I'm looking for something to just add that little bit above, a little bit of brightness, a little bit above the 8 kilohertz region, maybe just something that's might be missing up there to add it, give it a little bit of an extra, and drop it in there and just see how it sounds. If I find the right sound, then I'll go with it. It's really as simple as that. So that's where those two came from. On this one in particular, they've both been processed, but they're panned left and right to just give a little bit of stereo image. And that is literally it with those. So that's that aside. But coming back to the Maschine element. So what I do is I don't know how many Maschine users are out there or not listening to this or going to listen to this maybe in the future. So I'll just explain. what it is for the uninitiated, if you like, because everybody uses a different setup. I've been a Maschine user, Native Instruments Maschine user for 10 years now. Started out on the first version, and all it is really is it's another sampling tool from Native Instruments with loads of different drum kits in it. And what you can do with that is you can have the drum kits, plus you can also load in plugins from Native Instruments and actually from any third party plugin as well, and almost use it as a jamming tool, if you like, to start out your initial 16-32 bar beat. And that's what I tend to do. I'll build up my drum kit within Maschine. I'll usually start with a setup, and I'm going to open one up in just a sec to show you what I mean. I'll start with a setup in there. It'll just be literally a drum kit that's playing that I may have built up over time when I've had a separate session where I've just gone, right, I'm just going to noodle around and build up the drum kit. And then what I do with it, which I find an extremely, almost like a workflow hack, and I won't use that term lightly because everybody says hack these days. Quick workflow hack. Do this. All right. What I do with it, I'll get several drum kits loaded up on Maschine. I'll cut the kick out because I'm using the kick from the F9 kit all the time. So as soon as I load up a new drum kit, the kit gets muted off straight away. And I'm actively listening for a single sound in that drum kit which grabs my attention. And I'm like, right, okay, I like that sound. There's a clap in there, or there's a swish, or as a whiff, as we said, that comes out to me, and I'm like, right, okay, I really like that. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna manipulate that a little bit, make it my own, but that's what I'm gonna do. And I'll literally solo that. Maybe I'll find a couple of other bits, claps and hi-hats, and maybe there's a snare somewhere.
Yeah, so you're kind of like cross-referencing against different groups and kits, basically.
I am, but I'm taking the best of it. So I'll go, right, okay, I like those. And then I'll move on to the next one. So within Maschine, you've got like an A to F, much like any other drum machine, I imagine. I'm not sure exactly, Paul, how Ableton's works because I don't use it. But I imagine you can cycle through another kit, another kit, another kit, perhaps. And then I'll just pick the best from each one of those, mute all the rest out. And then once I've got to a certain point, I'm a bit of a tidy freak. So I'll tidy up what I've got and bring it into one drum set, pop a limiter on it. Maybe add a little bit of like a tiny bit of glue compression on it, just to give it the idea of what the sound of what I want, and then pop it on and off. If I like it, then I'll export it out to here onto Ableton Live. When I do that, that's like a finite part of the process for me. It's me saying to myself, I've got the drums I want. I'm going to use these drums, and I think that's really, really important. I think it's really important to help in that creativity, keeping the flow going. So if you get in the studio and you're more than an hour or so into it, and you're in the dreaded loop world, and you're playing your tune, and you're like, this is an absolute banger, but it's only 16 bars long. One of the easiest ways to get lost in that further is to still have it in on your drum machine, or still have it dialed in on your synth, and still be playing around with the sounds. So I like to print mine straight out. And that's generally what I'll do. Sometimes I don't get it right. Sometimes I'll go back a day later and go, nope, don't like that. So I'll just take a few bits out and pop back into Maschine. I have afforded myself more recently the ability to go back into Maschine and edit it afterwards, because I used to be ruthless and delete the synth out of Ableton completely, not save anything to make a point. I was like, right, I'm not going to save that. I've got this is what I'm doing. And I realized over time that actually I probably do need to go back and look at those.
Cue sound of you cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Exactly, yeah. So I do go back and do that. What I'll do though now is I'll just pop into the setup I've got here with Maschine, and just show you what I've got as an idea. So because this was done over a year ago, the sounds aren't the same, but it gives you an idea into my kind of workflow. Brilliant. And this is what I mean with it. So let me just get this. It's on large. Yeah, it's on large. Okay, so here you can see in front of you, this is just a normal kit. This is, in fact, that's a 4 candles kit that I used right at the start. I said about contextual kits. Yeah. So I've literally just got that in there for a starter for 10 for a kind of a melodic house sound. Sure. Solo that and hit play. Really simple. And what I've done here, and I've just labeled these for ease of tonight, really. So this is another kit called Convoy Kit, which is in Maschine. It's like, it's a pack. And in that kit, there's this pattern, which is the basic pattern that's in there. I've taken a couple of elements out because I really don't like them, but you'll get the gist with this anyway. If I turn this one on now, and you'll hear the next part of what I'm doing. This is me stacking up a few ideas. So there's a few sounds in there that I maybe like, and I'm like, right, okay, I could probably work with those. This is a good time for me to mention the other bit that I'll do. So let's say I go, right, okay, I'm going to strip out a few of those sounds. So you can see I've taken off some of them, deleted them out and gone, right, okay, I like the open hat. I like the bass, but I don't like too much of it. I like the clap, but you know what? I'm going to strip that back a bit. And I'm just going to use them, sparingly, bit of sprinkle here and there to really add a bit of interest into the track. So that's what I'll do. So if you look back at this one, this is the previous one. And then we come over to C, and you can literally see how much has been stripped out of it. So I've just kept a couple of bits. So just to cycle, I don't know how to dual solo these and switch them over on Maschine, but I'll, in fact, I should be able to by here. Let me just check. There we go. Look at that.
Oh, look at
Learning
that.
as we go. Learning as we go, Paul. All right. Okay. So this is this. I'll go back to the sound we got there, and I'll just show you an example. So, in fact, let's get the kick drum on as well, because it gives us a bit of thump. Okay. Back in on the kit, everything's on there. This is what we heard a minute ago. Let's just get that soloed on. And as I said, there's quite a lot going on there. So stripped out. And I'd say we're just starting to build basically the early stage of a groove. And that's where I'll take the start. That's the start of my tracks. And I'm not sure if this is a butchered Sasha quote, or if this is.
Well,
just
there's a few of them,
the
so don't worry.
But I'm pretty sure it was Sasha that said, anyone could build, a track, but without a groove, the track is nothing. And you've got to make sure you got the groove right. And that's something I've always, made sure that it stands out for me, and it's got my feet tapping before I even think about moving on. Indeed. I know there are some people who work well, and we work in other ways where they'll build a melody first and can build, maybe have a cinematic approach to what they do, and then add the groove later. Yeah. Oh, you do that, do you, Paul?
I
right,
do that,
okay, there you
go. Yeah. I'm all melody first, and then the drums basically wrap around the musicality that I've already written. So yeah,
there's a great argument for both sides, isn't it? When you think about it, if you are able to build up a cinematic piece of music that works without the drums, then you're onto a winner as well. So it's kind of balancing up the two, isn't it? Which is going to work best. But for me, I found the majority of time, it's very rarely that I'll go the other way, but the majority of the time it's build up the groove and then add the actual melodic elements later on. So that's Maschine in very simple terms. I might have, I'm looking down here and I've got groups H. I might go past H occasionally, so I'll be up to H, and I've literally gone. You can see here that's a mammoth kit. This is a home built kit, but that's just one of a few. And I won't be shy of going through a few preset kits until I've got the sound that I want, and go, right, okay, pull that out. Now let's edit that and just tweak it a little bit. I suppose my point there is don't be shy of using what's there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for those who are not maybe so fluid or aware of Maschine, from this kind of like jam bass, because the lovely thing is as well is that I always loved Maschine. I used Maschine for a long time myself, less so in recent years, but this is making me want to get back into it, if I'm being honest. It's the fact that you can lay it down without having to even need to look at the computer half the time. It is a very hardware controller driven workflow, which is a lot more intuitive, and I always found it really interesting for things coming really organically and going on feel, and it always felt like a bit of a live jam, and it always brought like more joy and more enjoyment into the process of getting these grooves going. But once you're at the end of that stage, then like how does that end up as a load of stems, basically? Because it is a load of audio loops, isn't it, for each individual?
Yeah, sure, yeah, I've got you, Paul. So let's say this is all finished now, and this is the beauty of this for how I use it anyway. You drag and drop. So I mean, let me just let's just move this off to the side a bit. All I'll do, in fact, I probably didn't even need to do that.
No, that's fine, mate. Yeah, let's go.
Scroll down to drag and drop files. Let's say we were just talking about this less is more, so let's solo that. You see that little ride there?
Yeah.
14. That's right. Let's lovely little hiss there. I should sample myself, shouldn't I? So okay, all I'll do is I'll highlight that as a single, and I'll go to group, because bearing in mind on here you've got group settings.
Yeah.
And this is probably the first time of many where my notepad comes in handy. So whether I've got it on the side of Ableton or whether I've got a word pad to go, Chris, look, your convoy ride has got a limiter and a compressor on it.
Yeah.
Have a think about what you're doing with this later on. And don't go, oh my God, it's some touch sounds. Right, let's compress the hell out of it. Because that's obviously not wise. So I'll look at that. I'll go, right, okay, I've got a limiter compressor on it. I'll make a note. I'll drag it, literally click and hold it, drag it, drop it in.
Yeah.
And there it is.
And that's
Takes
it.
a couple of seconds, but there it's added. It's added in there as a sample.
Beautiful.
And it's really that simple. It's it'll come in at whatever volume you set it up at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you actually to give a slight wrinkle on how I used to use it as well, I used to save the processing until I got into the DAW, because one of the things I like to do was to actually work all within one or a couple of groups like you have done. But then there are, if you go into the settings, there's also an export audio function, which will export everything in one go as a set of stems into a folder, which you can then drag and drop in. So, it's really, really cool.
Yeah, for me, this is I do this single method because of understanding what I've got in the group. I think is probably like a signal to myself. But you're absolutely right. You can literally hit that. You can do them all in a wanna, and then just take them out of a folder, chuck them in, and then go, don't want this, don't want that.
Absolutely. And I'm glad we brought this up because we're getting some Maschine love in the old chat here. Mr. Fred saying, I'm an avid Maschine user. This is great. There is a few people saying, Bongworth saying he's a Maschine user, Geraint saying that he's starting to move back to Maschine recently. And just to ask to answer a couple of questions, Sean's asking, Sean Harvey, is it a bit like using Push 2? It is and it isn't, because obviously, as Bongworth has just said in the comments here, Maschine is, well, I don't know whether it's not as well integrated. I think it's a different integration. Kevin here, Bongworth saying it's more of a groove box, whereas Push is I think he means an extension of Ableton, or it's a more integrated controller for Ableton. But it is similar to Ableton's drum rack in a way, whereas this is more like when the Maschine first came out, it was more of an emulation of the MPC workflow, like MPC samplers and stuff like that from back in the day. And yeah, it is very, very effective. And again, what I like about what you do, Kev, is similar to what I used to do with it, which was once you've got the stems in there, the audio stems, that's it.
Yeah.
You committed then. And also as well, it has to be said that it's probably a bit lighter on CPU than actually, playing around with a load of plugins and stuff like that, because it's just reading a load of audio stems. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, if you look at, for example, let's just go. Sub. This is classic. I haven't got it on there, but I've got a compressor on this sub here. Got a limiting compressor on here. I've got more on here, and this is just on the group sections as well. So the group bus. If you then go to the individual sounds, they tend to all have their own thing as well. So many people will say Maschine in its own right is, as someone said just then, as a groove box. That comes with its issues because it can be CPU hungry at times. I must admit, because this is quite an old setup now, it seems to be a lot less CPU intensive than it was back in the day when I first had it.
No, absolutely, yeah. A couple of people asking, or Mr. Fred here saying he actually uses Maschine with Logic, and then Sean asking about buying one to use with Logic. Honestly, I would say, regardless of your DAW, it's probably going to be well worth getting if you like this kind of workflow. I'd say specifically, because I know Bongworth, Kevin, actually uses Maschine with Cubase. If you're using specifically Cubase or Logic, I actually think it's an even more essential purchase, because it makes everything so much simpler in the context of Logic as well. And Cubase as well. Kevin's got a great little hack here. He says he loads an amazing plugin. Have you heard of Atlas, Chris?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, it's well worth checking. There's two of these, because I've been on the hunt for a much better sample manager, especially for single hits and something that's just a bit more fun. So basically, Atlas is like this. It's like a map, and all the samples on your hard drive or various folders are organized into almost like a global kind of map. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I've seen it. I think I might have seen it. Now that you said it, that's just reminded me. It might have been on the Discord community. I might have seen someone post something up about it, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta have a look at that." So it rings a bell now. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic thing. I personally liked another product called XO by XLN Audio, which I've recently integrated into what I do, and I absolutely love that thing. It's so intuitive. But what Kevin's talking about here is actually loading one of those plugins into Maschine, and he can generate new sequences on the fly. So it adds another really cool layer of possibility, because again, one of the things you can do as well is that you can also, as Kevin's saying here, you can load any plugin you want into Maschine. So it works with all VST or AU plugins. Makes a massive amount of sense. It's absolutely brilliant. Fred says here, I think it's worth it, Sean. I use a Micro Mark 1. Personally, I would recommend getting a full-size one, because I found the Micros a little bit menu intensive on the actual piece of hardware. I actually really like I've got a full-size Mark II with the incumbent flashing screen of death that nobody seems to be able to fix, which actually led me to stop using it for a while. But this is making me think, maybe I should just buy a Maschine 3. Maybe I should just get one of those going, because it's very good.
One thing I'll say, in fact, there's a couple of things I'd say that are probably important for people to think about is, I mean, I'm using a Mark II here, and the only reason I'm using a Mark II, bearing in mind that there's loads of, there's a Mark III, there's the Studio, which came out for a while, didn't it? It's a bit of a big beast. There's a few different versions out there, but you don't necessarily have to spend the earth to get one as well these days.
No, you really don't.
Have a hunt around. I got this. I mean, I had a Mark 1 with a license and I bought that, brand spanking back in the day. And I mean, for the longevity of it, having it from 2012 to now. Granted, the only thing I've changed is the hardware, and that was because Maschine Mark 1 wasn't supported on Mojave or Mojave or whatever you want to call it.
Mojave, as the Scousers call it.
Mojave.
Hey mate, got any of that Mojave?
So that was the only reason I changed over. And they're solid bits of kit. Brilliant. That's the first thing I'd say. And another thing to think about as well is there's a couple of other export options and other ways to get it in there. I'm not going to go into this full Maschine workflow.
Mate, you'll be doing a Maschine course for us the way this is going.
But you can set you can set all the channel outs to your channel ins on your DAW. And once you get that set up, in Logic, Cubase, and I'm sure this might ring with a couple of people that are watching. You can have it set so you still use that as your main workflow within Maschine. You can do all your edits in there. You can use your host automation to edit the automation you can see on here. So all this stuff here can be just edited by the host, and you just leave it in there. And there's different ways of setting it up. So I'll see the whistle stop version before I get too into detail with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just want to just refer to a final question. Sean's asking what the difference is between the Mark III and the M Plus. Well, the Maschine Plus is it's a bit of an overkill monster, because actually what it is, it's a standalone unit. You actually don't need a computer to be able to run Maschine Plus. And in fact, it's got its own audio inputs. It's basically like a Maschine 3 controller. Because again, don't forget, the Maschine controllers are just that. They're MIDI controllers, but they're meant for a very specific piece of software. In this case, the Maschine plugin or the standalone Maschine platform. The great thing about Maschine is that you can actually just hit Shift and Control, and it'll be a regular normal MIDI controller if you want it to be that. So it's really great for that as well. So the Maschine Plus is if you want to have a standalone unit, which, again, I think they're a bit of an avant-garde piece. I don't think a lot of people need them. But as Garrett was saying here, he's on Maschine 1. He said you can pick up Mark IIs and Studios fairly cheap now on places like eBay, Gumtree, well worth looking. Nick Bowman's in the Mojave crew still, apparently. And he's
is that typed accordingly? Is it?
That is, yeah. It obviously, as you know, we read exactly like Ron Burgundy. We read it exactly how it's on the teleprompter. So there you go. So yeah, before we get lost in the Maschine, quite frankly, and quite genuinely, quite fully. Once you've got the drums in there, obviously I've seen there's very minimal editing going on, in the context of the track. In terms of processing, is it very light on processing? There's not much going on. Is it just a bit of EQ and stuff?
Yeah, so it's very, very simple at this stage. Our viewers will be pleased to know. I try and leave enough that I'll put a little bit of an effect on it that I might well implement in a mix down.
Yeah.
But I'll try and steer away from doing much on it at all at this stage in the group channel.
Yeah.
So there may be a couple of bits of bobs done. I mean, on this one, it's very much, I think, almost all of it. Let's just have a look. Oh, there's a bit of EQ on the tops there. And these have got a little bit of, well, that's got duck there, which you may or may not know, which is literally, as it says on the tin, it's a little ducking tool, which will that drops on a chord. So every beat in the bar that'll just duck underneath with the sound. I think I've seen you maybe used a Kickstarter a long time ago.
Kickstart. I also use, in fact, recently I've just started using LFO tool a lot as well, which is fantastic. But again, all these things like, you know, Shaper Box and stuff like that are fantastic as well.
Yeah, so that it's simple tooling really. What I like about Duck, and I'll just, before I go back up to the group, what I like about Duck is you've got the ability to, and I'm sure that LFO tool may have this as well, but you've got the ability to cross over what you duck out at what frequency. So I on this one, for example, you can see there it was about 3 kilohertz. Below there, that's what I wanted it to literally just duck out of as a lower end, or the mid to the low. So that's that. Yeah, good little tool if you haven't looked at it well with a look. I've used that on quite a lot. And then the main thing I do, and this is really just for a bit of glue and nothing more, a very simple tool I've got here, BX limiter. It's if I play the drums on their own, it is what it says it is. I use it as a glue compressor. You've got a tiny little bit of saturation here, very, very small amount of gain reduction as well, which you'll see when it comes on. So where the threshold is here, I've just pulled it down to just to nip it and give you that little bit of silk. So if I press play on here, you just see there, it's not, I mean...
Yeah, it's doing almost nothing, is it? It's just actually providing a bit of integration.
Just enough for it to, just enough to get that a little bit of melding things together, just gently. Gentle melding, I'm not sure if that's a word.
That's something I'm going to steal from you.
Just put it on repeat when we go, right, here's a bit of content for you. Gentle melding. Right.
Just going to add this for a bit of gentle meld.
I should use that in my so during the mix downs, which I'm going to do a shameless free plug. So when I do mix downs for other people, which is, you know, just
here we go. We have to get that in there.
I like to make sure that I give a decent amount of feedback. I'm just wondering whether, and I usually just get at least an A4 size of, you know, what I've done and what might help them for the future. I might put melding in there. A bit of melding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like to point out, competitive rates are available. Other mix engineers are also available.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it, Paul. There's no magic there.
Great.
It is what it is. And again, the Pro Q, which we'll see on here, is very obvious in what it's doing. It's literally just coming out and coming back up. It's just some really simple effects.
Very nice. Very nice. Lovely to see something so simple.
Yeah. You don't have to reinvent the wheel with these things, I think.
No, you really don't, mate. You really don't. So that was the kind of the beginning basis of it, right? And then obviously the bass comes in as well. So let's have a little look at the bass and you know, talk about how that came about as well.
I'll caveat bass. You can see here again, I don't do any processing really with the bass unless I really have to in production. I like to strip what's the word? Kind of delineate my processes. So I'll say, right, okay, I'm going to produce a track, then I'm going to mix it, and then if I'm really feeling the love for it and I've had maybe a month away from it, I'll master it as well. But usually if it's my own track, well then I'm like, no, give it to someone else. I can't stand it anymore. I can't listen to it anymore. So I will try my utmost to not put anything on the groups apart from the drums, unless it's something that I really, an effect or something, an idea that I want to do. And even then, what I'll tend to do is bring it back out. If, let's say, for example, let's say this bass I had during the drop, the bass cuts out gently, you know, you get that low cut, and then it drops back in later on. I will initially put that on the group channel because let's face it, it's the simplest thing to do. Right, I'll bang Pro Q on there. And I'll go, right, okay, I'm going to cut the bottom off. And I'm going to automate it until the drop. And then just as the drop comes in, I might feed it in or I might drop it in. But what I'll actually do when I come to export the files out ready for mixdown at a later stage is I'll just take that Pro Q and I'll just duplicate that was across all of the channels that I'm using it on. And then I'll ungroup it. And just bear in mind what, if any, kind of processing I put on that group.
Amazing.
So that's that. Yeah, so in here, and the reason why these are so sparse is because these were created in Maschine as well.
Very interesting.
So you can see Abalone kit there. It was part of another kit in Maschine. A lot of my sub work it starts in Maschine as well, because it's part of the groove. It's the best way to describe it. It's part of that setup that I have. Later on, I may well go, you know what, I don't like that anymore. I might start looking elsewhere. But the majority of the time, I'm pretty content with the groove that I've got laid up in there. So in here, for example, I might just put it on with a kick as well, so you can hear it together. There we go. Again, very, very simple in nature. I've got that almost sub stab is I'll give it away another 4 candles secret. If you start listening to
that's what you're here for.
Absolutely. So if you listen to a number of my tracks over a certain period of time, particularly maybe not so much recently, there's a certain sub kind of sound that I use to kind of bounce between the kick, and it's the same one, just toned up, maybe saturated slightly differently, just in to complement the track. But it's nothing extreme. It's the same sub stab, and again, nothing wrong with doing that. You're setting up part of what your sound is. It's part of what you've created over time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's very simple in nature. We get the first introduction a little bit further down of a synth, this was frozen because of I was having some issues with timing. You hear that just tapping away there. Let's just unfreeze that.
Those things are always great for like adding a little bit of momentum and a little bit of pace into things.
That's it. So that part of the track it's where you're trying to add that, like you say, the bit of urgency, a bit of that feeling that, oh God, right, there's a bit of that going in there, bit of tension build. Again, this one,
the classic
Sylenth. I mean, I started out on this bad boy in 32-bit format I think it was 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was still listening to a lot of trance back then as well, and this is great for that kind of like wide open source synth stuff. But it's also got some good arps in there, and it's got some good editing functionality, so you can keep it nice and simple in here. This here, Blade Runner,
it's one of the classic presets, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you've clipped it down, have you, and made it really quite sort of clicky rather than like.
Yeah, some compression on it, and also I've cut it. So let's just have a look at what else I did with it. I thought I went mad with this, but looking at it, it looks like I didn't.
He says putting a decapitator on it.
Well, I'm just looking at it. It's a decapitator. You either go one way or the other way. You're like, right, okay. People often talk about when you open it up, the temptation to hit the punish button is there. It's a real thing.
And you know what, mate? I do not. I completely succumb to that temptation almost every time.
It sounds so bloody good.
It really does.
So yeah, I mean, it's very. I'll play it with and without, so you get an idea. So on its own, this is just a very subtle amount.
Yeah, the drive's not on that much, is it? About 3 or 4.
Slightly more clicky. Maybe just a little bit of lower mids. It's almost a fake. It's almost like a fake, as I call it. You're filling a gap of what feels like bass, but it isn't. It's just a little bit further up the spectrum.
Yeah. It's a bit of a psychoacoustic trick, isn't it? It's like it's giving people a bit of a bluff that there's harmonics there that actually aren't.
Yeah, exactly. Without stuffing yourself at the bottom end. And keeping that, you've got a lot more freedom down the bottom end there, because it's very easy to lose that, as you know. So that's Sylenth, and that is it's a real whistle stop with a bass. So yeah, bass created in Maschine. When it comes to the kind of synths I would use outside of Maschine, I don't usually use Sylenth. I'll be honest. I use I've just started using pigments now, which I find quite interesting for multiple sounds. But I'll mostly go to Massive, the original Massive.
The original and best, I'd say.
Yeah, and there are so many great starting points in there for sub sounds and for bass sounds. A warm and a massively editable. I didn't mean to use the term massive within the synth
We
massive, but here we go. But they've really got some good editing functionality within there. And yeah, you don't need to go nuts with any clinical EQ or anything like that. You can really hone it down with what's within the synth. You get some quite interesting sounds out of it doing it that way as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So yeah, that's it. Then we go to unless there are any questions on the bass. Has anyone got any?
I think everybody seems just absolutely fascinated and is keeping quite quiet in the comments at the moment. Apart from Sean, who's trying to get you sued by devious devices or devious instruments by wondering whether or not that's where the track title comes from Duck.
I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
Cheers, Sean. You've given away my secret.
Yeah, the cease and desist letter's on its way now, Sean. Well done.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah,
that's me.
Mate.
Like operating in scared land.
Passive aggressive.
Right now, here's a sound. The next sound that has become synonymous, I would suggest, with the track, and it's that electro kind of unapologetic, thick, almost fart of a sound of an electro sound that just comes across the speakers. And this is my first time bringing up Omnisphere, so let's give it a moment. I'll show you that sound.
It's thinking about it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the only plugin that really gives me any grief,
Mm-hmm.
But it is, it's a massive beast, isn't it? So there we go. Right, here's the devious bit. But again, I think this started out as a patch within Electric Mayhem,
right,
which I think is still sat within there somewhere, with just some really, really minor editing and a bit of compression. Where was the editing? It was in here.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can just noodle around with it till you get the right sound. But if I play the sound, you'll know which one it is. This is kind of synonymous with the track. So I'll just play it on its.
Yeah, just do it on
that bit there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jesus.
And then listen to it again now with an extended.
Nice.
So that's that real electro, filthy.
And it almost sounds like it's got a bit of a Foley noise in on top of it, like a kind of a chain rattle or something.
Yeah, and that's again, if you go through the sound samples in there, that's not too dissimilar from what it was originally. There was some minor changes to the I think it was some. When look at this, I thought I changed some of this hack, but I clearly haven't. But that's just in the amplifier envelope. So yeah, very, very little in the way of changes made to it to get it to do what you want it to do. And like I say, in here, if I just get my, that's me pressing the MIDI key. So it's a very different sound normally.
Very nice.
So you can noodle around with that and get what you really want out of it. I think it just goes to show really that you don't have to, like I said before, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to get the sound you want. If you are looking for something, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of how Omnisphere works. It's pretty pointless. But you'll know if you've had a little look around there and you're looking for something specific. This is another go-to for me for finding things like pads and strings.
Yeah.
If I want something warm, I'm like Omnisphere straight away.
Oh yeah.
And I probably wouldn't really. I might look at Farlight or something out of the NI pack, depending as a starter. But yeah, you really don't need to overthink it. Is my point.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so many different combinations in Omnisphere as well. Like you can pretty much get away with that being your only synth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
It would also be remiss of me at this point not to point out that we have Omnisphere, Sylenth, and Pigments courses on MYT. Thought I'd get that in there.
I've still got to do the Pigments one because I've been recently purchased it. I was sat here with a chap called Ben Eldon, who's somebody I'm working with at the moment on a couple of productions. And I was just staring at the different bits that he's just finishing up a degree in music technology. I'm sorry, Ben, if I've butchered the exact degree that you're doing. But he was just like clicking through it and found something that works on it, got it working straight away. I was like, there you go, cheers, mate.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things everything is so different, isn't it? It just takes a little while to really learn how to use it.
Oh, 100%, mate. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm going to get in on that Pigments course very soon. Now, after that, now we're probably going to get into the meat of what people are going to go, right, that's what you did with it. And this is the Devious. I've got the Spring, which is this sound, and the Devious Riser, which is the one, you know, that just builds and builds. So here's the Spring. Really simple.
You play Mario at the same time or something? Nice.
And I won't brush past this because there's, I mean, so that CS80 low pad, I won't go into that unless anyone really wants me to, because it's really simple. It's just an undercurrent of a pad in the low mids, just to kind of add to the atmosphere. I'll show you what I mean. It's that.
Yeah.
It's nothing special. It does the job. It's got a bit of sidechain on it as well.
But you know what I love about that kind of like the other sound you just played is how it started off almost borderline comedy, and then very quickly it became not funny anymore.
Yeah, I suppose that's the premise of the track, isn't it? It goes from being I'm all right now.
Again, that it felt like, you know, Chris Rock and Will Smith at the Oscars. It was funny until it wasn't.
That stops you laughing by moving it up a notch.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Ooh, that escalated quickly. Get the Anchorman stuff in there again.
So we got that build, and then this is the. If you look at, if I just fast forward to here, and then where it starts going a bit nuts.
Yeah.
You can hear all sorts of stuff being introduced there.
Yeah, the sends are going bonkers there, right?
Yeah.
Very nice. Pretty serious by that point.
So there you go. So we'll go into the sends in a minute. I'll just run through the sound. So the sound itself is produced in Virus. And it was a sound, if I just go across to what it was.
The only virus you want in this pandemic.
Yeah. And I'll caveat this very quickly with all you non-virus users, which will be quite a few now, because there's not many left, I would imagine. But it doesn't fucking matter if you've got a virus or not. It really doesn't.
Well, that comes as a relief considering I sold mine last Sunday.
Yeah, well, you're cash rich compared to me now, though.
Mate, that's already been spent on paying off other stuff.
What, more gear?
HMRC has just entered the chat. No, it was no, not at all. Like I've got a few pre-existing things, like, you know, an iPad Pro and a few other bits of kit that I was kind of paying off on the month to month, which I've decided to kind of just nix by putting the money into a different place. Frees up funds for other things, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, to go into the actual sound itself, it's literally on here, as you can see. There's a load of different MIDI setups. Sure. Is that the screen? Is it that clear?
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah,
it's getting a little bit quite squashed up there. And then each of these, I've got the audios out going through. So this is here. What you can see here is the original setup that it had before I exported the sound out. With chorus, a bit of decapitator, and the usual suspects. So some Pro Q and some Duck. And that was on that boingy boingy spring kind of sound. I literally record what I want in Virus and then export it out to here. I think on this occasion, I may have had some issues with the wet sound, if you like. So I moved everything over from and recorded dry and then moved everything back over.
Yeah.
And again, there's not too much crazy stuff going on here. Bit of chorus. I can always try them on and off as well if you want to hear them with and without.
Yeah, great.
That it almost removes a little bit of the body, but gives you that sense of space. That's how I hear it. And then with the decapitator, it's, you know, let's have a look at what we put on it. A bit more saturation on this compared to last time.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to town now. It's starting to be used. See, it's quite flat without.
Yeah, it really brings it out, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And then the rest are pretty much stock, not stock plugins, should I say, but stock things that I use. So that's that. The sound itself. Now I'll jump into this one only, and then when I go to the next one for the riser, I'll explain the riser and how you can do it differently. Because I'm a firm believer in that you don't. Whilst I enjoy using hardware, I don't think you have to have, a virus or a profit or whatever. You don't have to have those things to make the sounds. We know that in this day and age, you can get a plugin that will do the job, especially when you've got a certain chain running up with it to get a sound that you want. So let's just go to that. So I've got initial MIDI, and all this stuff runs through my, where is it? The plugin here. So this is the plug for Virus. You can see there I've got the Zinger, which is a springy thing. Devious, which is the original Devious sound when it rises up, which we'll come on to in a sec. And this is where the sound was originally. So
do you have any idea how rare this is, a Virus TI plugin running in this day and age in 2022?
A working one,
yeah. I mean, by the time it got to the end for me with my Virus, it was like trying to even open that plugin would just crash whatever DAW I was using. Not just Ableton, it was Logic, it was Cubase, everything.
I'm a bit shocked we're still on YouTube right now, to be honest with you.
well, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, considering the fact we played your track from beginning to end, mate, the monetization's probably gone for me already, so don't worry.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Well, you didn't, because you're going to get the money, but there you go.
Bedrock Records has told you to take this down.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, John, if you're watching, no.
So, okay, let's just go to the middle of it. So we know those two sounds, right?
Yeah.
There's Devious on its gone, and there's the Zinger, the old Zingaroo. Now, let me just have a look at this, because it's been left on its own. There we go.
There you go.
And you can see it coming up here now. You can see the frequency being brought up. But what will be may or may not be of interest is there are very few changes in here. I've got the original sound. I think I might have messed with a couple of bits, but generally speaking, with this spring, I've got what I like out of it.
Yeah.
So there wasn't any special things going on in Virus. That's what I'm trying to say, to make it Virus specific. You can create the sound elsewhere. You don't have to use any particular virusy kind of tools, if you like. I don't think anything moved in Zinger there. Devious is very different, as in the lead sound, in the fact that yes, it does use it uses the best parts of the Virus, really. Some frequency modulation adjustments. You can pitch shift with it to get that sound. But like I say, I'll briefly show you this so you can see what happened in it. But then I'll move on to what I've done with a very simple tool in Sylenth to make it basically do the same thing, with some chorus and a bit of reverb. So this is in my opinion, this is what probably to me makes the track, that constant climb, which is this. As we get further up there. Very raw sound, isn't it? Very in your face.
Yeah. And like you say, there's that little bit of FM in there, do you know what I mean? In terms of like it kind of being a bit atonal, but in a really pleasing way that, it leads to a lot more tension, right?
Yeah, and there's a way of, if you can get a way of doing this, whether it's via pitch modulation or whether it's via FM or whatever you do to get that change, there's a way of getting it that I've managed to hit on in this track to make it sound like it's looping but constantly climbing. So you don't really hear it start again. It just feels like it's going and going again. It's actually not. There's moments in time where it's just hitting the bottom and starting again, but it's just getting that right moment without it sounding like it is. And that's what's happened in here. So if I just I'll show you these. So watch this. I don't know if you will see this, but I'll change it on the Virus here so you can see what I'm doing with the frequency modulation. I'm just going to be, let's open anyway, so it's the filter goes on. So it's the filter open, obviously, but then with it. That's me taking over the automation and doing the frequency modulation. And if you, like I say, you catch that just right, and you can set that up in automation, whatever synth you're using, and that, like I say, I'll show you in a sec. Another example, then you can get that lovely rise that just keeps going and going and going.
Oh yeah, it's really, really impressive.
Yeah, nice sound.
Yeah, really good.
To the point where I don't want to part with my virus because of that sound, but that's only because of what it became, the monster that it became.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's I know, sorry, RIP your virus.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I did have a bit of a last minute kind of like about it on Sunday, but the lad who took it off me was a really nice guy, so it went to a good home. So I'm very happy for it.
Good stuff. Okay, so yeah, as promised. Excuse me, I said I'd look at a devious riser option. So if I just bring that into here, and I'll show you what I've done with this.
Yep.
And you'll be surprised at I've called this Devious Remake using Sylenth. So Sylenth, other synths are available, as we've said. You could probably use the stock, the one for Ableton, can you? If you wanted to, because in here, if you look at what I've got on Sylenth, I've got one saw synth.
Yeah.
It's a single oscillator, the saw wave, and it's literally on its own. Volume up. I don't know why he's doing this, but he's putting the pan over there. I'll just show you this on its own. You'd be like, what are you on about, Chris? But have a listen to this first. We've got this sound, he says.
Which is coming in any second now.
It's done that thing where it's on main volume. Nothing, right? It's just a saw on its own. But this is the simplicity of it, right? So you've got that. I tried this first. I tried, right, okay, let's just do a bit of frequency shifting in here, and you can get some sound out of it. So you see where I'm going with that? Real simple. But then I literally took the audio effects out of what had been placed onto the virus channel, and you can see here I've got Valhalla Room, which is a reverb plugin, Decapitator again, and Duck, and then just a bit of utility gain and some EQ. Just crank those on and leave it. This is literally just turning those on and pressing play now, and you get a completely different sound.
Sure.
And you're very close to that climbing, pumping up devious sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you could modulate things like the decay on the synth and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then you can also do. A really easy example in here. I've got the ping pong, which I need to go back and show you actually really the group effects and sends. The ping pong on this, for example.
Nice.
And that will give you the effect you want. So yeah, don't think, oh my god, this has been made in Virus and I can't get that sound, because I think a bit of noodling around, you can pretty much recreate any sound these days.
No, very much so, mate. Exactly, yeah. And again, like I think it obviously because the Virus is it's doing that slightly FM kind of thing, and I think it's easy to get lost in the fact that it's a piece of hardware and whatever, and you can get like very similar results. I mean, again, you've used Sylenth in this way. There's a lot of other synths that could do something very similar and get to a very, very close approximation of the sound. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think one of the other thing to say is just don't be afraid of stacking up the chain on your effects and just having to play around with it.
Yeah, this is a great example of how the sound that you design on the synth itself is only half the battle. Often what really takes a sound over the edge in terms of its sound design is actually how you process it in the aftermath.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. Just refilling me water. Don't worry, I'm not going for a secret wee.
I was going to say, turn your camera off. God's sake, this isn't the Joe Rogan experience.
Yeah, it's very open, isn't he?
Yeah.
So that's yeah, the devious riser there. Now coming back to the, I mean, I won't do it for the whole track because it would be all night. But going back to the melodic elements, you can see there's red dots literally scattered, as you said earlier, all over my sends. And I've got in the sends, there's nothing too exotic, and I'll show you those actually first, and then you can see them all in action. A very simple grain delay, which I've in fact, the grain delay I've literally had on a return save for God, I can't even remember since when, but it's something that I like to add into it more often than not, actually, into some the melodic elements, because sometimes it gives off that nice like harmonic sound that you get from it. I mean, it works really well on that in particular. I just wonder if there's something in there I can show you what I mean with probably just the in fact, yeah, there is the spring on its own. And that, in fact, you can going back to it in the context of the track, and just a bit earlier on, before the first electro part comes in, the first omnisphere bit, you'll hear that grain delay coming in. And that's just, it was a method I was playing around with a while ago, probably about 2 years ago now, and it stuck with me. It was something I enjoyed, using that grain delay to get the almost, like I say, there's extra harmonic elements that you get from particularly melodies, not maybe so much with that, that come right out of it. And it's almost like it's not, I don't want to use the term hack, but it's almost like it saves you having to put any other layers on, because you've got this lovely sound that comes out of the back of it.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, and the grain delay, I've got to say, is one of the most underrated and overlooked plugins in Ableton.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a little bit unwieldy, and I think that's what puts a lot of people off. But honestly, I just think it's when it's used in this kind of context, there's very, very few things that can really compete with it, really.
No, I 100% agree. And even it's unwieldy, but I'll find a way of trying to, if I can put it into another track and make it work, I'll find a way of making it work.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that tends to be something that I do a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can see, I think on here, if I just click it, just for argument's sake, God, look how much is used. How much is used on there? I mean, now that you know what it is, that sound that builds up in it, and you listen to it, I mean, almost there. It's almost like it's almost a question answer by its own accord. It's just going, and then you've already got the ping pong happening anyway, but then you've got this like, further up, third, fourth, fifth harmonic almost. That's what it feels like coming out and coming back at you. I love the way it does that.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, super cool, mate. Super cool. So the final sound I wanted to really ask about was when it drops and you get that real like siren kind of like, almost like a kind of an air raid siren kind of sound. Like that for me is the sound that really, really took it over the edge for me. So I'm curious as to how that was achieved.
So it was, and I hate to disappoint, it was a single synth key, the pressing of a single synth key on. I've got a very old, but it's actually out of service at the minute because I've just taken a couple of chips out of it and replacing them for editing purposes. I've got an Oberheim Matrix 1000,
right,
and that has this kind of creamy, rich sound to it. And I know if my other half's still watching this, she'll be like, God, he's used that term creamy and rich again for that bloody synth. That's what I bang on about. But it's got this lovely sound about it. And when you tweak it a little bit, you can kind of roughen it up a bit. So I just literally roughened it up a little bit. I've got one effect on it, which I'm just looking at now, which you can see here, which is this. I've turned it off for now because it leaves this horrible hissing. And this is another one that you'll know well, Paul, because this is another one that you passed on to me. And it's this one.
Oh, yes. I was actually talking about this to someone the other day. This is one of my favorites. Like, this is
That's really good.
Really, really, really amazing. It's one of the best, like, degrading tools that I've ever seen.
And let's again, as we like to listen to things in the context of what they're being used.
By the way, Jill said surprisingly she's still listening.
just about.
Just
managed to get through the real geekery.
Absolutely, just still chewing you out in the comments, like nearly 2 hours in.
Brilliant.
Well done, Jill.
Thank you. So let's get to that. Just we've got the drop point. I mean, before we get on there, let's get that in. Here we go. Let's put it all together because it sounds right and proper, doesn't it? All together.
It does, mate,
and then we'll go back to it. Oh, we've done it. Sorry.
Oh, mate, after all that
moment. That's like sack the DJ moment, that, isn't it?
Oh,
right,
mate, yeah.
Now, at this point, you can hear just how much destruction and hiss you've got going on literally with this.
Amazing, mate.
And that's raised up here, like noise hisses.
Yeah.
You take that out, and it's gone.
Yeah.
But it's that lovely, it's that lovely hiss that you can just add in there. And another thing that I really love about this, I didn't use it in here, although it may sound like I did. It's not used at all. Is and I'm sure you've noodled around with this, the warp and the wow.
Oh my god, yeah,
and the flutter, those three. In fact, all of those green knobs there that you can see in front of you. Playing around with those, you get a lovely bend on the sound. It's just it's absolutely as you would expect it from a degradation VHS, but great on melodies, great on pads, great to give you that old school kind of feeling of playing it out on a tape.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I rate this so highly. So as you can see, it's actually in a reactor instance, but it's being used as like an insert effect, because you can use reactor like an effects plugin. I believe this was freely available for a while, but I believe it's part of, if you've got a full version of reactor, you can actually get it from the reactor user library, I believe. But yeah, you'll be able to find it on the internet, and it's one of the gems. It really, really is. I absolutely love the thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So yeah, looking back at the OB sound itself, yes, it's made in another analog synth, but again, you could do this with a single key or with it in a synth of choice, and add that. You could definitely add the audio degradation into there with the VHS. Also, there's a little bit of vibrato, or however you want to pronounce that, which is just used from the modulation wheel on the keyboard. So when you hear it drop, I'll just go back to it on its own. You'll hear it kind of almost wash itself out. The combination of the synth change there, that was on the mod wheel, and literally some ping pong delay again. So yeah, it was really a really simple thing to do. But I think the key thing to acknowledge here is if you get the atmosphere right in the drop, and that moment just before the drop, but you just keep in when you come back in with the next sound that you're going to drop in with. And this goes back to the Nick adage, make sure you fucking mean it when you put it in. So pick a sound that you're really gonna. It's got to be able to shock people enough, but feel right.
No, absolutely.
And that was my, absolutely my intent in this. I was like, right, I'm going to do this, and this is what I'm going to do with it. So that's, one of the few moments in production where it's turned out exactly what I wanted.
And how did it? Indeed, mate. Indeed. So, like, the final thing of what I want to sort of just talk about is like the vocal.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So this is an interesting one because, I mean, I think I said to you right at the start when it started out as a melodic number, it had this "I'm reaching in" sound, which is literally just. But that is.
That sounds a bit grain delay-ish. Or no, it's vocoder, isn't it?
Vocoder. I think I've bounced this and put it back in. So the original sound was also. I mean, let's take the vocoder off and play it. I'm reaching out, I'm reaching in. I'm not sure what it says, but
yeah. Reminds me of like Yellow that back in the day.
But it was it does. But if you this is the wrong one, Chris, I'll do it. So let's just go to the vocal. Why are we struggling? It's still sat for some reason. There we go. Not quite sure why it's doing that, which is rare.
Oh, bizarre.
There we go. Yeah. I'm pretty sure this started out live up here somewhere. I'm reaching out. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it was. I think it was literally just toned down and then messed with. Vocoder again. Nice. Stop plugin in Ableton.
Brilliant.
Really
brilliant.
Easy to use. Lots and lots of saturation on this. Get that dial up. Look.
There's a theme building here, I think.
Yeah. I think in many cases less is more. But if you're making a track in which you want to have an impact, don't be shy of using it. Don't be shy of chucking it on and seeing what it sounds like. You'll know if it sounds awful, and because you'll hear it. Your ears will tell you. So that's what I did in there. So variations on that vocal is what got us to the other end of this. So there's this one here, which is, let me just get that on mute. That's the same sound reversed. Nice. with some reverb as well. And it was actually, I think on its own, it sounds almost like a ha. Let's just try it. To quote the old Phil Collins trick, it's that reverse reverb before you bring in different elements works a treat.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Works a treat on your melodies, but it also works really well for your vocals. And actually, later on, I think I went a bit to town with it. I think I slowed it right up. So version 3 of that was the same.
Nice.
That is the same sound, but it's all it is. I mean, it was in Valhalla Room. I put the decay on a huge amount, recorded the audio out of the ha moment, and then used that recording, flip the audio, and then use that to draw it in. Such a simple thing to do,
so great,
but very effective. Yeah, and you end up with this. So what you've got, instead of sometimes where you've trying to slide in a new audio sound to fit what you're trying to achieve, like let's say for example Splice or Loop Cloud, and you go, right, okay, I need a reverse vocal. Why not just create the one that one with what you've got, because that it'll fit exactly with that track. There's you're not trying to fight to try and get a sound that fits, because you've already got it there. So yeah, that's it really. The simplicity of it is vocoder, decap, and Valhalla for reverb.
Amazing.
This bit, sorry Paul to jump on you there, this bit here, so there's one bit here where before the drop you might notice that the I'm reaching in, the vocal changes. You get that almost Hershey, it sounds like Hershey Mama. That's really weird. Let's just play it on its own, so you get that drop element. You'll never unlearn that now. It's there forever. And there's the drop. So that is the same. I'm reaching in reversed. It's literally that. I think if I reverse this back again, I'm pretty sure that's what, if we go to this one here. There you go. And that's the sound. That's got a bit more vocoder on it, and it's, I think there's some slight, I think you can see where it originally was. I've gone up to quite a lot on the pitch to get the sound I wanted from it. But again, noodling around with the same vocal, no need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
So there you have it.
Brilliant. I think that's the thing that kind of stands out more than anything is the scale and the impact of it, yet the simplicity of the entire thing is really, really impressive to see, mate. And I think it's a really great example to anyone watching, either watching live or watching in, on the playback on the YouTube channel, of just, how just lots and lots of little details come together and tend to compound into something far greater.
Yeah. I thank you. I think it's that's probably one of the most important things to share with people as well is, you've got to try and avoid that feeling that you need to absolutely craft everything to perfection, and you've got to, what's there in front of you and what the ideas that are there in front of you, feel free to settle with them early on, and don't go, right, okay, I've got to just noodle around with this a bit more. I've got to add an extra bit on this to make it perfect. It doesn't have to be like that. Just I'm not saying stick with what you got and then force it through the funnel of averageness, but definitely when you're creating, don't feel like you've got to craft perfection from the outset. Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff that's there already. There's a lot of things that are there at your fingertips, ready to play with, that people have themselves crafted over for years, in some cases for since, and they've made sounds for you to play with. So play with them.
Absolutely, and they're there as a jumping off point for you to be able to do your own thing and put your own stamp on it. So take advantage of that. Absolutely. So yeah, it's been amazing to kind of like just go through this in such detail. Appreciate the subtlety and appreciate the simplicity of it, but also to kind of just go through the story of it, really, more than anything, because I think it's been such a wild ride, like, watching this track go from like various iterations into where it ended up and where it's ultimately ended up in terms of its commercial and critical success. I just think it's one of the best examples of an artist who's really developing, really emerging, and again, like, I think it's an amazing testament to yourself. I think it's an amazing testament to Nick in terms of what Nick Muir does. Always give Nick so much love. He'll be back on NYT shortly. Just going to work that out with him. Hello, Nick, if you're watching. And obviously, I think it's even if we do say ourselves, it's a testament to our community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, look, it's a pleasure coming on here and sharing this with the community as well. I definitely, there must have been about an hour or so where I was so lost and engrossed in sharing everything with you guys. I was like, right, I've got to show them I've done this. I've got to show them what's happened here. And that's cool, because I know that people on the other end aren't just going, oh my god. They're like, it's hopefully it's interesting for you.
Oh yeah, mate, it's massively interesting. I mean, and even for me, to be honest with you, it's like, you alluded to how many miles I've got on the clock now, which is getting disturbingly high these days. It's one of those, like, the old MOT starts becoming a little bit under threat when you get to my kind of mileage. Might need to be heading for the knackers yard soon. But it's even for me, it's like it's great reminders for me, and it's always a privilege to obviously guide people like yourself through your process. And like I've always said on everything that we do at NYT, I'm not trying to teach someone to sound like a genre, or like, as I always called it, like the oldie middle aisle version of your favorite artist, or to become a tribute act to your favorite DJ, essentially. Like, or even me, I'm not trying to teach you to sound like me. I'm trying to teach you guys or help guide you guys to sound like yourselves, because ultimately that's all you can do, and that's all anybody wants at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's such a pertinent point, because it's one thing being aspiring to be like somebody. It's one thing aspiring to sound like somebody, but ultimately, if that's what you end up doing, if that's how you end up crafting, and that's what you will end up doing, then you're never going to be able to stretch your legs out and go, right, okay, what can I really achieve by not necessarily achieving the ranks of the dance music world, but what can you achieve for yourself creatively by just letting go of what everybody else is doing and just having a play around yourself?
Massively. It really is the secret sauce. It really is to like genuinely, like, without putting too fine a point on it being too industrial in my language, is genuinely letting go of that and just not giving a fuck.
Yeah. The Devious lead wouldn't have happened if I'd have gone, well, that might be a bit much. That I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm going to play with it. And I've done that in several tracks, but also genre-wise. And I think you've probably backed me up on this. I've come into a couple of feedback sessions and dropped tracks in with you that are like breaksy, but like kind of funky nightmares on wax. And you're like going, I love this, but you never once said, but this is going away from your progressive house roots, Chris. What are you doing?
No.
It's a joy to be able to make that music. So don't put yourself in a box and go, right, okay, I'm going to be a melodic house techno producer. I'm going to be X, Y, and Z. You may hear other people say about brand creation, brand identity, and keeping the people hearing what they want to hear. Great. Maybe you can do that if and when you get to that level that you've got that package there that you want to use. But don't use that to pigeonhole yourself so soon that you can't enjoy the process.
100%.
You've got to be able to get on that journey. You can't just go, right, okay, I'm going to do what I'm going to do when I get there.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Because you're not there yet.
Exactly. And you've got to, like, it's funny because I was in Leeds last night watching Groove Armada, and PBR Street Gang opened for them, and I was talking to Bonner, one half of PBR Street Gang, and we were talking about a mutual friend of ours, Paul Wolford. Obviously, I mean, Paul Wolford, like, and exactly what you're saying reminds me of Paul in the context of, there's Paul Wolford, and what he's done is that he's like massively kind of like accentuated part of his sound to huge commercial success, which is fantastic because that's actually part of his sound. And Paul's sound has always evolved over time, but then there's Special Request. And then that's a completely different thing. That's a completely different side of it. And we and Bonner were talking about a night that I went to in Ibiza a few years ago where Paul played Amnesia Terrace, played a Paul Wolford house set, smashed the place to pieces, literally picked up his gear, walked into the next room, which was a drum and bass room, then played a Special Request drum and bass set, and then smashed the other room to pieces, doing something completely different within an hour of each other. And it's like, you want to talk about, what a lot of people say, well, you gotta have your sound and you gotta stay in your lane, and people get confused. Like, those days are over. Those days are over. Like, people are into such a wide range of music now, and listeners are far smarter because of things like streaming and just the sheer availability of music and festivals and everything else. And I think even through the pandemic, I think it's been widened even further. And I think you're totally right. It's like, one thing we're actively doing as a community is, we're trying to take the obstacles down. We're trying to like just get people into an unrestrained creative flow, no matter what is coming out. Don't second guess it. Don't try and force a square peg into a round hole. Stop trying to make it something that it's not. If you went to make a progressive house record and now you're making a funky disco cut, go with it. Sometimes you walk the dog, sometimes the dog walks you. It's as simple as that. And I totally agree with what you're saying, because, actually in those moments of unrestrained, unexpected directions and flow and joy, that's when the best stuff happens, mate. And I think you're a massive example of that, mate. And, just to say from the heart for a second, like, dude, I'm so fucking proud of you. Like, just how you've taken it on and how you've, like, you've really become a massive part of what we do. And you've really kind of, taken the principles of what we try and espouse to heart. And, we just couldn't be proud of you, mate. We really couldn't, mate. And, we're we're just thrilled that, you know, actually like it shows that what we do has an effect, and that means the world to me, mate. It really does.
No, that's great, and you know, give yourself a pat on the back as well, mate, and the community that, you know, we're all a part of, which is, you know, ultimately your overall creation. It's coming to fruition in such a great way. I knew I had a really good feeling about so last September I met a load of guys and girls over at in Liverpool for the Electronic Sound Summit, and obviously caught up with yourself as well. And I had that positivity around what happens within this community is second to none. It's really good. It's what will keep you coming back when you're at the end of a session going, no, I've had enough, I'm throwing the towel in. It's everything that you want and more in that sense, because you know that there are other people that go through the same shit.
Well, yeah, 100%, mate. And that's the thing. It's like, that was the big thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why we grew so much through the pandemic, was that it was that aspect of community, and it was the aspect of like people just, you know, you're not alone. Because like this art form and this creative practice and life can feel very, very isolating, and it can feel very lonely at times. And it's just great to have. And, you know, to be honest, again, because a lot of people know I've done a lot of work in the mental health part in the dance music industry as well. And that was a major part of it, was like, you know, the biggest thing that solves most of these issues that we've got with mental health in the dance music industry is connection. What we've got is an amazing connection between, you know, like basically like nearly 200 members now. And, you know, we're deliberately keeping it quite sort of, you know, we're not going to be that platform that goes up to 100,000 members and it's really impersonal all of a sudden. You know, we're keeping it really personal. Like, we really pride ourselves of being a little bit different to all the other platforms, in that, you know, we know everyone by name. We know everyone personally. You know, we're not just slinging courses and tutorials at people. You know, we want to make a difference in people's lives, mate. And again, like, you know, I think what we've showcased tonight is a big proof of what we do. But it's just massively in your credit, because you've taken the raw materials that we've tried to just offer to you, and you've just run with it, mate. And like, we can't wait to see what you do next, because we think you're going right to the very top, mate, and we're going to be right behind you all the way.
Thank you. And, you know, the support means an awful lot. And it goes right the way through. It's something that I pride myself on when it comes to everything from socials to community, is be yourself, and, you know, be thankful for what you've got. I'm thankful to be in that position that I'm in now. I'm really, really thankful for the support that people have shown over the last few weeks, in particular with the release, but also leading up to it as well, you know. And it's important, again, with MYT, you know, we foster that spirit. I think it's really important to have that, particularly when you're in that cuspy, nearly area, which, you know, everybody, you keep at it. I've been producing for 11 years, since, you know, when I first started releasing music, and yeah, I took a couple of years out in 2017 to around about 2019, and then got into it with the intention of doing what I'm doing now. But, you know, with enough commitment and surrounded by the right people with a positive mindset, I think, you know, it's possible for every single one of you.
That's it, mate. It really, really is, because the actual news is that there's room for everyone. There really is. And again, being part of like just trying to create a bit of a culture around, like, you know, we're so used to the electronic music industry being so dog eat dog, and being so, like, you know, cutthroat, and can be quite negative in a lot of ways, and can be quite nasty. You know, to be able to create a place where there's, like, you know, 200 people who are all just willing each other on with everything they've got is absolutely massive. So, you know, Mr. Fred's asking, where can I join? Well, you can go over to www.transition.studio. All the information's on there. As well, you know, you can contact me via email as well. You can literally go to paul@transition.studio, email me. Like, to give you an example, you know, you can buy courses on other platforms. We offer, like, one-to-ones, basically. Like, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know what your goals are. I want to know what you aspire to, what you need help with. And, you know, we give that to every single member as well. So, you know, we definitely pride ourselves on being you know, an artist development platform that tries to offer what the pros get at, you know, at this kind of level. And as I say, the amount of talent that's on there, we could reel them off, you know. And again, going back to the DC Ukraine stream that I did for the guys at Global Progression, hello Dan and the crew there. You know, there's an amazing showcase of unsigned talent there, to the extent where we may even be starting a label soon, because it's just that ridiculous that we may end up having to put music out ourselves to be able to actually push people in the right direction. So there you go. There's all that stuff there. We'll put all the information in the description. So if you're watching this back, if you're watching it live, basically come back, have a little look. All the links and everything else will be there. Again, you've got my email, which I've just told you on the live stream, I should say, as my teeth are falling out after nearly 2.5 hours. So yes, so it's time for me to go and put my dentures in the glass like the old man I am. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, and I've absolutely just loved getting this amazing excuse to just hang out and spend another couple of hours with you.
Feelings mutual, mate, and I love geeking out. Yeah, you know me. We've had a few phone calls where I'll just get lost in there.
Yeah,
like, get into the weeds. Let's have a chat about this.
Yeah, you and me both, mate. You and me both. Yeah, so yeah, pretty special, mate. Pretty special. So yeah, definitely, mate. And again, like, Devious is still available. Live in London is still available. If you haven't got it, you know, seek it out and enjoy it. And yeah, guys, enjoy your weekends. I look forward to more of these very, very soon. And again, more stuff on the YouTube channel coming soon. So thank you very much, guys, and look after yourselves. See you later.